Can Fire Emblem Engage be the best Fire Emblem game? Pretty bold statement for me to make about a game that isn't even out yet, right? Well, yes, but not really. Fire Emblem Engage has come in guns blazing and is showing a lot of promise in terms of what it brings to the table. So let's take a look at 10 things that I think could potentially put it above and beyond the rest of the games in the franchise. Also, just as a little note, this video is only speculation, but if you want to play along, feel free to leave a comment on what you think are going to be the best, or possibly the worst, aspects of Engage, and maybe you can come back to this video after release and see what we got right and wrong. Now, without further ado, let's dive right into it. Number 1, unit customizability. So far, there's nothing to indicate that Engage is going to follow in the footsteps of the previous few iterations of Fire Emblem games where you could make any unit whatever you want them to be. Units have been marketed as being in very specific classes and seem to have quite detailed designs that go along with both their personality as well as contribute towards the class type they seem to be in by default. There's nothing confirmed here, but I like the return to locked classes, as it means that every unit has their own unique niche and skill set. It also means that a unit's quirks can be more firmly rooted into their class personality, which I always thought was a nice touch in the past games. We do lose some of the flexibility, well not some, but most of the flexibility we had in Three Houses, sure, but honestly, if any unit can do anything, what's the point in trying out different units? They end up just being a face swap in that case, so I kinda like this if it's true. Number 2, multiple paths. Yes, one of the biggest points of contention in Three Houses, and I guess Fates before it, and this was the quality of the story due to split paths. I can pretty confidently say that Three Houses somewhat failed in providing consistently high quality route splits in terms of the storytelling, and I'm glad that Engage seems to be going back to a more streamlined, linear, single-path game. Or is it? At the end of the most recent trailer, we see Alear with only red hair in what seems to be a pretty villainous moment. There's some speculation going around that this indicates that there might be a good or a bad ending, but honestly, I just think this might be a flashback to the conflict from 1,000 years ago when something went wrong. After all, there has to be a reason he was put to sleep for 1,000 years, right? Either way, if they are going to do an ending split where your decisions actually matter, I just hope that they do it the due diligence and give it the proper writing and character development that it deserves. Number 3, character designs. This is one that seems to be quite divisive in the community at the moment, and character design preferences are definitely subjective, so I get it. And while I understand the disdain for Alear's design, trust me, I'm not a huge fan of it myself personally, I do have to admit that I'm enjoying some of the new over-the-top character designs that were presented in the trailer. Like I said earlier, it gives these characters a lot of personality, and it allows for a certain level of self-expression that I had actually missed before. Three Houses had the post-time skip designs, sure, but these are on a whole other level. I'm sure a lot of people are thinking it's going too anime, and yes, there are far more on the JRPG spectrum than anything Fire Emblem has ever done before, but hey, I'm enjoying them, and they're really elevating the uniqueness of the characters. Number 4, the villains. In my most recent trailer analysis video, check it out if you haven't already by the way, I said I was impressed with the villain cast they had, and I stand by that. To go along with the previous point about unique designs, there are multiple characters that seem to be front and center and in your face constantly throughout the story. In addition to that, Alear seems to have a villainous side as well, and that just makes things interesting. I'm excited for these villains to show up, and historically when we've had great villain groups, like the Black Fang for example, it made for an extremely memorable and impactful experience story-wise. Number 5, the gameplay. Engage's gameplay seems to be going back to a more basic Fire Emblem standpoint with a few new features. We've seen the break feature that incapacitates your enemies and doesn't allow them to retaliate if you use it, as well as the hero rings that allow you to summon heroes of old to aid you in battle, kinda like the pair-up mechanic from Fates and Awakening. In addition to that, we also have fists added as a weapon to this game, which we saw in Three Houses, but here they seem to exist outside the weapon triangle, which has made its return. We also know that skills are coming back. Other than that, maps seem to have gone back to being a more sort of compact and engaging size, but I don't think we're really going to be able to know a lot about the map design strength and the difficulty of the actual gameplay until the game is here and we can play it. All I can say is that I kind of like the fact that it seems a little bit more simple, and the innovative additions seem to be pretty promising for now at least. Number 6, Alear. There's so much that can be said about Alear in terms of plot relevance and them as a character that I think I'll have a video or two separately dedicated to them on this channel later on. But what I do think warrants talking about here is how they seem to have gone more along the Byleth route as they continue to move away from a pure Avatar character. Personally, I was never a fan of the Robin and Corrin model, and I think Byleth was actually a step in the right direction, despite all the little story inconsistencies in Three Houses. But I'm also ready for my protagonists to just be proper protagonists again, and not a semi-self-insert character that doesn't really say much. It feels like Alear is actually a further step in that direction from where Byleth was. They have a bunch of dedicated voice lines and seem to be far more central and involved in the actual plot. I think this is a good thing, and I'm interested to see where they take this. Number 7, the setting. I've mentioned this a few times in my previous 2 videos, and I'm kind of still torn on the world of this game. The fact that it's 4 quadrants surrounding a holy land in the middle is kind of a tired and lazy design concept. We literally just saw this with Three Houses. A square map is also boring geographically, and it feels kind of awkward. Having said that though, with the most recent trailer, we can see that each of the regions seem to bring an element of diversity to them, with the characters all being very distinct and having different designs based on their geographical and possibly cultural elements. This kind of variety makes the game more vibrant and lets it stand out, so I'm willing to hold out on a verdict for this one. I think it's either going to be amazing or it's going to be really bad, with probably no real middle ground here. Number 8, Marth. Well, yes, this point is about Marth, but it's also about the other divine heroes. Marth specifically seems to have quite a few lines implying he's interacted with Alear before over 1,000 years ago during a previous conflict, and it seems like he's going to be very story relevant with a clip of him turning evil in the most recent trailer. I'm gonna go out on a limb and say I'm not a fan of the Marth game stories. They overly simplify things and generally aren't as interesting plot-wise. But what also worries me here is whatever multiverse BS they could possibly be cooking up in regards to the other heroes and whether or not this will be canon. One thing that could be really cool is if this is done well and it integrates into some kind of greater FE timeline that is starting to link together all of the worlds, then this could be actually pretty awesome. If they do line up, I can't wait to see how they line up. Otherwise, if you're just gonna mess around with stuff, then keep me out of it. Number 9, the visuals. I'm gonna come out and say it already. These animations and map visuals look beautiful. The cutscenes look much more fluid than we've seen in recent Three Houses era, and everything overall feels more crisp to me. I know this is not final game footage, but I love the way this game looks. There's not much more to say about this. Number 10 is the bonus features. In the very first trailer, if you were paying attention, we saw that there is a central monastery hub, and that seems to have little different things going on there, like the fishing and the clothing shop where you can get alternate outfits for your characters. We have had some of these activities around before, but it's always fun to see them come back. Personally, I'd love some kind of interactive things to do with my friends online. I doubt we'll get that, but if we can get a nice selection of cosmetics and maybe a few fun minigames to do in our downtime, I think that would really help to differentiate this game from the others that came before it. And that's a wrap. Thank you all for listening, and to everyone who's made it this far into the video, make sure you give me a like and maybe stick around and subscribe, since there are going to be a lot more Engage videos on the horizon. We are only just getting started. But for now, that's all you're getting from me, and I will see you all in the next video very, very soon. Peace.